The unexpected letter. John Parker's life was as ordinary as the ticking clock on his kitchen wall. He lived alone in a small house at the edge of town, where the streets were quiet and the nights were darker than ink. He worked at a repair shop, fixing old machines for people who barely remembered they owned them. Every day was the same, and John had stopped expecting anything new to happen in his life. But that night was different. It started with a sound, a soft thump in his mailbox. It was strange because no postman ever came this late. John walked to the front door, pulling his jacket close against the cold wind. The street was empty, but the mailbox glowed faintly, as if it had swallowed a firefly. Inside was a single envelope. It wasn't paper, not exactly. It was smooth, warm to the touch, and pulsed gently. Strange symbols ran across it, shifting like water under moonlight. Right in the middle, in neat English letters, was his name, John Parker. John felt his chest tighten. He didn't know why, but his fingers shook as he opened it. The letter inside was just as strange. Half of it was written in perfect English, the rest in curling alien script he couldn't read. The English part began, "To my closest friend, John Parker, by the laws of the Orion Pact, I leave you my possessions, my wealth, and my companion. My journey ends, but your journey begins. Zereth." John froze. The name Zereth pulled a memory from the dusty corners of his mind. It had been years ago. The rescue mission, the malfunction in cargo ship, the being with skin like silver and eyes like a storm. They had barely spoken the same language then, but John had saved him from a failing airlock. They'd shared a strange, silent bond before Zereth left in his starship. John had thought he'd never hear from him again. Now this letter told him Zereth was gone. And what did companion mean? A pet? A friend? Something else? As he read the words again, the paper pulsed in his hand. Lights in the house flickered. The fridge clicked off. Then on, and underneath it all, John heard a low hum. Soft at first, then deeper. It seemed to come from everywhere at once. The last line of the letter shifted before his eyes. The alien script rearranged itself into English. Your inheritance arrives at nightfall. Be ready. John dropped the letter onto the kitchen table. His heart beat faster. Was this some elaborate prank? But who could fake alien writing? He tried to distract himself with coffee, but every tick of the clock made the night feel heavier. When the sun finally dipped below the horizon, the air outside grew still, too still. Even the crickets were silent. Then he heard it, a deep, rumbling vibration that rattled the windows. John stepped outside. In the dark field behind his house, a glow spread across the grass like spilled moonlight. It grew brighter, sharper, until a shape began to form, sleek, metallic, and impossible. A spacecraft. It landed without a sound of engines, only that steady hum. A panel slid open, and two tall figures stepped out. Their skin shimmered faintly. Under the starlight, they wore long flowing coats that seemed to ripple with color. One of them held a crystal sphere the size of a grapefruit. Glowing from within, John Parker, the first figure said, his voice deep but clear. John's throat felt dry. Yes. The figure stepped forward and placed the sphere in his hands. This holds all that Zereth owned. It is now yours, by his will. Before John could speak, the second figure stepped aside. From inside the ship, a tall silhouette appeared. She walked with slow, graceful steps, her silver hair catching the light. Her eyes glowed a deep, soft blue. When she reached him, she spoke in a calm, musical voice. By Zereth's will, she said, I am yours. John's mind raced. This was impossible. This wasn't just wealth. This wasn't just an inheritance. Somewhere deep inside, he knew whatever life he had before tonight was over, and whatever was coming next had already begun. The arrival of the inheritance. The crystal sphere was warm in John's hands. Its light moved like slow lightning trapped in glass, twisting and curling. He didn't know if he should be holding it, or if it might explode. The two alien attendants stood silently, their tall shapes blocking the cold wind that swept over the field. John looked up at the woman standing before him. Her silver hair shimmered under the night sky, and her glowing blue eyes seemed to look straight into him. Her presence was calm but powerful, as if she could speak 1,000 words without opening her mouth. "I don't understand," John said, his voice unsteady. "What is this? Who are you?" She tilted her head slightly, as though the question was strange. "My name is Lyra," she said slowly, making sure each word was clear. "I was chosen to be your guardian." "And your partner," John blinked. "Guardian? Partner? What are you talking about?" "I don't need a—" She raised her hand gently, and the air around her shimmered. Tiny motes of light swirled for a moment before fading. "Zirith's death was not peaceful," she said, her tone lower now. "He had enemies. Dangerous ones. And now they will come for you." The attendants moved back toward the ship without a word, but John barely noticed. His eyes kept going to the sphere in his hands. "What's in this thing?" he asked. Lyra stepped closer, her height almost matching his. "It holds Zirith's entire wealth and more. Trade routes, credits, technology, secrets. The kind of things people kill for." John shook his head. "This is insane. I fix coffee machines for a living." "I'm not." "You are the one Zirith chose," she interrupted, her voice firm. "That choice cannot be undone," the attendants returned, carrying 2 metal cases and placing them at John's feet. One opened automatically with a soft hiss, revealing stacks of thin metallic sheets, each one glowing faintly. "These are access tokens," Lyra explained. "With them, you can open accounts in the Orion Bank and claim physical assets on dozens of worlds." The other case opened to show weapons, sleek, unfamiliar designs that didn't belong to any human army. John took a step back. "Whoa, I'm not touching those." Lyra's gaze softened slightly. "You may have to," she said. "Sooner than you think." The cold wind picked up, rustling the grass. Above them, the sky shifted. A faint ripple moved through the stars, almost like a wave in water. Lyra noticed it first, her expression changing instantly. "They've already found us," she whispered. John's pulse jumped. "Who's they?" Lyra didn't answer right away. Instead, she turned to the attendants and spoke in a rapid, melodic alien tongue. They moved fast, loading the cases and sphere back into the ship. "You must come with me," Lyra said to John. "Now." John glanced at his quiet little house in the distance. It looked small and harmless under the moonlight. He'd lived there for years, and in a single night, it already felt like a part of the past. He opened his mouth to argue, but then he heard it, a deep, rising hum, far different from the soft sound of Lyra's ship. It was mechanical, sharp and getting louder, out of the darkness. 3 small craft shot across the sky, their undersides glowing red. They moved fast, too fast, dropping lower toward the field. Lyra grabbed John's arm, her grip surprisingly strong. "Inside," she ordered, pulling him toward the silver ramp. The attendants moved with smooth, practiced speed. One pressed a panel on the wall, and the ramp began to close. John had just enough time to see the approaching ships open their weapon ports before the hatch sealed shut. Inside, the air was warm and carried a faint metallic scent. The walls pulsed with soft light, almost like the inside of a living creature. John staggered as the ship lifted off the ground without the roar of engines. Lyra stood beside him, watching the glowing displays that floated in the air before her. "They are mercenaries," she said. "Hunters paid to take the inheritance." "And me." John leaned against the wall, trying to process her words. "I didn't ask for any of this," he muttered. Lyra turned to him, her expression unreadable. "Neither did Zirith when he saved your life," she said quietly. John had no answer. Through the viewing window, he saw the mercenary craft closing in. One fired a bright streak of light, but it curved away, deflected by an invisible shield. The ship jolted upward, punching through clouds and into the black expanse of space. Earth shrank behind them until it was just a glowing blue marble. John stared at it, a strange mix of loss and awe in his chest. Lyra stepped closer, her voice low. "This is only the beginning," she said. "Your life will never be the same again." And deep inside, John knew she was right. The bride's secret. The ship's interior hummed softly as it cut through the darkness of space. John sat in a curved seat near the main control deck, still gripping the crystal sphere as if it might vanish. Across from him, Lyra stood in silence, her hands moving over glowing symbols that floated in the air. Her silver hair caught the shifting lights from the controls, and her blue eyes stayed fixed on the displays. John wanted to ask questions, 100 of them, but his voice felt trapped. Finally, he forced the words out. "So, guardian and partner? What does that even mean?" Lyra didn't look at him at first. "It means," she said calmly, "I am bound to protect you. At all costs." "That's not an answer," John said, leaning forward. "You keep saying Zereth left me all this. But why me? I'm not a soldier. I'm not some hero. You saved his life." She interrupted, turning toward him. "And where I come from, that is a debt greater than any currency." John frowned. "That was years ago. And I didn't expect anything in return." Lyra's gaze softened. But there was something behind her eyes, something she wasn't saying. "Zereth knew his enemies," she continued. "He knew that one day they might find him and kill him." Her voice lowered. "He also knew they would not stop at him. They would go after what he valued most. That is why you are in danger." John shifted uncomfortably. "I still don't understand why you're here." "I mean," Zereth said, "companion in the letter. Are you saying he meant you?" Lyra's lips curved into the faintest smile. "Yes," she said simply. "In our culture, to entrust someone with a life partner is the highest sign of loyalty. It means Zereth believed you worthy of protecting." "And being protected," John rubbed the back of his neck. "This is insane," he muttered. "I live in a house with a leaky roof and an old coffee maker. I can't just—" The lights in the ship flickered. A ripple of energy passed through the air, and the crystal sphere in his hands began to glow brighter. Lyra's expression sharpened. "They are tracking us again," she said, moving toward him. John stood. "Wait, how?" Before he could finish, Lyra placed her palm over the sphere. The light inside twisted and formed into shapes, star maps, rows of alien text, streams of numbers flowing too fast for him to read. "This," she said, "is not just wealth. It is a key. Whoever holds it can open vaults, bypass planetary defenses, and control trade across entire sectors." John swallowed. "And you're saying people will kill for this?" Lyra looked at him. "They already have." She turned away and began speaking softly in her own language. The sphere responded, its surface rippling like water. John watched in fascination. "What are you doing?" "I am locking it," she replied. "Only you and I will be able to open it from now on." The ship's hum deepened. John moved toward the viewing window and saw streaks of light outside, ships moving fast. Closing in, his stomach tightened. "They found us, didn't they?" Lyra stepped beside him. "Yes," she said quietly, "but they will not take you." Her voice had changed, lower, sharper. The calm, graceful figure from before was gone. In her place was something far more dangerous, the blue glow in her eyes brightened until it almost hurt to look at her. Her hands flexed, and faint arcs of light danced across her fingers. John stared at her. "What are you?" Lyra's gaze stayed locked on the approaching ships. "I am your shield," she said, "and your weapon." The first impact rattled the ship, sending John stumbling against the wall. Alarms pulsed red across the deck. The viewing screen lit up with targeting markers. Lyra stepped forward, her voice calm again. "Sit down, John, and whatever happens, do not open that sphere." The mercenary ships closed in, their weapons glowing. John gripped the sphere tighter, feeling its warmth pulse in his palms. A part of him wanted to ask if they'd survive, but another part already knew. Survival depended entirely on the woman standing between him and the enemy. And in that moment, John began to realize something terrifying. Lyra might not just be guarding him because Zirith asked. She might have her own reasons she wasn't ready to tell him yet. The wealth beyond imagination, the mercenary ships were gone, not destroyed, just gone. 1 second they were locked on target, the next they were swallowed by a sudden tear in space. The silence afterward felt heavier than the noise of battle. John sat frozen in his seat, the crystal sphere still warm in his hands. He didn't know if Lyra had scared them off, outmaneuvered them, or something far stranger. He only knew one thing. He wasn't in control of anything happening. Lyra moved back to the main deck, her expression calm again. "You're safe for now," she said. Though her tone carried no comfort, John stared at her. "You need to tell me exactly what's in this thing," he said, lifting the sphere slightly. "No more vague answers. I need the truth." Lyra walked over and placed her hands on the sphere. At her touch, its surface rippled, and a beam of light shot upward. The light expanded into a vast holographic display that filled the space around them. John gasped. They were standing in the middle of a floating star map. Thousands of points of light hung in the air, connected by shifting lines of glowing energy. Some pulsed red, others gold. "This," Lyra said softly, "is Zirith's legacy." She waved her hand, and certain lines thickened, showing hidden trade routes that bypassed major galactic checkpoints. "These paths are known only to a handful of beings in the galaxy," she explained. "They connect worlds where resources are harvested in secret, worlds the great powers pretend do not exist." John turned slowly, taking it in. "What's that?" he asked, pointing to a massive golden shape in the distance. "A vault," Lyra said. "One of many, each containing technology far beyond human science." The map shifted again, revealing images that seemed impossible. Sleek weapons that could fold light into solid shapes. Machines that could heal a wounded body in seconds. Engines that could jump across the galaxy without fuel. Zirith owned patents to most of these, Lyra continued. And the credits in his accounts could buy entire moons. John's mind reeled. "This is insane," he whispered. "You're telling me I'm now the richest man in the galaxy?" Lyra's eyes narrowed slightly. "No," she said. "You're the most hunted man in the galaxy." Before he could respond, the map zoomed in on a flashing red symbol. "That," Lyra said, "is a distress beacon." "It's coming from one of the vault worlds," John frowned. "Why show me this? What does it have to do with me?" Lyra's voice lowered. "That vault holds something Zirith considered more valuable than all the others combined." She paused. "A name, the name of the one who killed him." John felt a chill run through him. "You mean you don't know who did it?" "I have a guess," Lyra said, "but guesses do not win wars." "Proof does." The sphere dimmed, and the star map dissolved into nothingness. John blinked as reality returned. The smooth walls of the ship, the faint hum under his feet. His thoughts churned with images of wealth, power, and a killer who had crossed worlds to silence Zirith. "So what now?" he asked quietly. Lyra stepped back toward the controls. "Now," she said, "we go to the vault world." She looked over her shoulder. "And you see for yourself what you have inherited, and why you cannot walk away." John leaned back in his seat, the sphere resting in his lap. The stars outside shifted as the ship prepared to jump, and deep inside, he wondered if this inheritance was a gift or a trap he would never escape. The first attack, the jump to the vault world, was short. Too short, John thought, for the amount of trouble he expected. Through the viewing window, a massive planet filled the darkness, half of it covered in swirling green clouds, the other half lit by sprawling golden cities. But Lyra didn't head for the cities. She aimed the ship toward a jagged mountain range on the planet's shadowed side. As they descended, John saw no lights, no signs of life, just dark rock and snow whipping in the wind. "This place looks dead," he muttered. Lyra didn't look away from the controls. "That is why it's perfect." Few dare to come here. The ship touched down on a narrow cliffside platform carved into the mountain. The moment the hatch opened, the cold hit like a wall. John pulled his jacket tighter, following Lyra toward a massive stone archway carved with alien symbols. The crystal sphere pulsed faintly in his hands, as if it could sense where they were. Inside, the air was warmer. A long corridor stretched ahead, lined with statues, tall, armored figures with blank faces. John slowed his steps. "These statues are creepy," he said. "They are guardians," Lyra replied. "They sleep until the vault is threatened." Before he could ask what that meant, the sphere in his hands flared bright. Lyra froze. "They're here," she said sharply. A metallic clang echoed from deeper in the corridor, followed by another. Shadows moved along the walls, fast, deliberate. John's heart hammered. How did they find us? "They never lost us," Lyra said, stepping in front of him. Her blue eyes glowed brighter, and the air around her seemed to shimmer. "The attackers came fast. 5 alien mercenaries in jagged armor, their weapons glowing with red light." The leader pointed at John. "Drop the sphere," he growled, his voice like grinding metal. John tightened his grip instead. Lyra took a single step forward. "He does not give it to you," she said, her voice calm but deadly. The first mercenary lunged, and in a blur, Lyra was there. Her hand cut through the air, and a pulse of light slammed into the attacker, sending him crashing into the wall. 2 more charged from the sides. But Lyra moved faster than John's eyes could follow. She twisted, caught one by the wrist, and drove him into the ground. The other swung his weapon, but it passed through nothing. Lyra had already vanished from his line of sight. Reappearing behind him, John stood frozen, the chaos unfolding around him like a scene from another reality. A mercenary broke past Lyra and came straight for him. John stumbled backward, clutching the sphere. The mercenary reached out and froze. His body locked mid-step, his armor glowing faintly. Lyra appeared beside him, her hand pressed against his back. With a sudden push, she sent him sliding across the floor. Unconscious, the last 2 attackers hesitated. One looked at the leader, who snarled something in an alien tongue. Then both fired their weapons at the same time. Lyra raised her hands, and a shield of light burst into existence. The blasts hit and scattered harmlessly when the shield vanished. Lyra was already moving. 2 strikes, fast, precise, and the mercenaries were down. The corridor was silent again. John stood breathing hard, even though he hadn't moved much. You didn't even break a sweat," he said quietly. Lyra glanced at him, her expression unreadable. "They were scouts," she said. "The real hunters will come next," John swallowed. "If you fight like that, I'm not worried." Lyra's gaze lingered on him for a moment, and there was something in her eyes. Not pride, not relief. Something else. Then she turned away. "You should be," she said, walking deeper into the vault. "They weren't here for the sphere alone. They were here for you." Flight through the stars. The vault was cold and silent after the fight. John's breath still came in short bursts, but Lyra walked as if nothing had happened. She led him deeper inside until they reached a sealed chamber. The stone walls here were smooth and marked with glowing lines. At the center stood a pedestal, carved from black crystal. Lyra motioned for him to place the sphere on it. John hesitated. "What's inside?" "Something we need," she replied, "and something they fear." He set the sphere down. The pedestal's lines lit up, and the sphere unfolded like petals opening. Inside was not gold or jewels, but a single cube, small, black, and pulsing with a faint red glow. John frowned. "That's it." Lyra's voice was low. "This cube is a navigation key. It opens the path to Zereth's hidden safe world, where his greatest secret is kept." Before John could ask more, the walls trembled. A deep boom echoed through the vault, dust falling. From above, Lyra's head snapped up. "They're here again," she said, her voice suddenly sharp. "But this time, they brought help." From the corridor came the sound of marching, heavy, Synchronized, John grabbed the cube and the sphere. "Can we get out the same way we came in?" "No," Lyra said, already pulling him toward a narrow side passage. "They've blocked the main exit. We'll use the cliffside hangar." The passage twisted upward, the air colder with every step. Through a narrow slit in the wall, John saw shapes moving outside, dozens of them, and not just mercenaries. This time, some wore sleek white armor marked with the Orion Pack symbol. John's stomach turned. "I thought the Orion Pack were Zereth's allies," he said. "They were," Lyra answered, "until someone inside decided you shouldn't live long enough to claim his legacy. They burst into the hangar where—" Lyra's silver ship waited. She didn't slow. The ramp was already lowering before they reached it. Blaster fire hissed past them, scorching the walls. John stumbled inside, and the ramp sealed shut just as another blast slammed into it. The ship lifted off, climbing fast over the mountains below. John saw the mercenaries and Orion soldiers firing in unison. Some had strange devices that sent jagged blue arcs into the air. "What are those?" he asked. "Tracking lances," Lyra said. "They can follow a ship even through hyperspace, unless we shake them first." The controls lit up with a warning. A swarm of smaller ships detached from the enemy forces and gave chase. Lyra's hands moved across the controls in a blur. The ship dropped sharply. Skimming the mountain peaks, John gripped the seat, feeling the pull in his stomach. "They're gaining," he said. "Let them." Lyra replied, her voice calm. She angled the ship toward a jagged cliff and at the last moment dove into a narrow canyon. The enemy ships followed, but the canyon walls narrowed fast. Two crashed instantly, their wreckage lighting up the rock. Lyra guided the ship through a tight curve, then shot straight upward. The sudden change in direction threw the remaining pursuers off balance. Before they could recover, Lyra fired a single silver pulse behind them. The canyon erupted in a bright wave of energy, blocking the path completely. The display cleared. "No more trackers," John exhaled. "That was close." Lyra didn't answer right away, her eyes fixed on the stars ahead. Finally she said, "Close will not be enough next time." She adjusted the controls. "We'll take a long route through the outer wormhole network. It will slow them, but—" She paused. "But what?" John pressed. Lyra glanced at him, her eyes unreadable. "They will send someone." "Who knows you?" John stared. "What do you mean, knows me?" "I don't know anyone out here." Lyra looked back at the stars. "You will," she said quietly. "And when you do, you will wish you hadn't." The ship slipped into the wormhole, the stars outside stretching into rivers of light. John sat back, the cube and sphere heavy in his lap. He didn't know what was waiting at the other end, but a feeling had started to grow in his chest, that Zereth's death, the inheritance, and even Lyra's presence were all part of something bigger, and far more dangerous than he had imagined. The final revelation, the wormhole tunnel shimmered like liquid glass. Colors twisted and stretched until they snapped back into the darkness of normal space. John blinked against the sudden shift, his heart still unsteady from the escape. Ahead floated a jagged asteroid, half hidden in the shadow of a dying red star. At first glance, it looked lifeless, just another rock drifting in space. But as Lyra guided the ship closer, faint golden lines appeared along its surface, forming the shape of a massive sealed door. "This is it," she said, her voice low. "Zereth's safe world." The ship settled into a docking cradle carved into the rock. The moment the hatch opened, warm, dry air flowed in. Strange for an asteroid, John stepped out into a wide chamber lit by tall crystal pillars. The walls were lined with alien technology, all humming softly. It felt less like a cave and more like the inside of a living machine. At the far end of the room stood a single platform. Lyra motioned for John to approach. He hesitated, the cube and sphere heavy in his hands. "What's going to happen?" "You'll hear him," Lyra said simply. John placed the cube into a slot on the platform. Instantly, The crystal pillars flared brighter, and a shimmering figure began to form. Zirith, tall and calm, his silver skin glowing faintly. John felt a sharp ache in his chest. It was like seeing a ghost. "My friend," the hologram said, his voice deep and warm, "if you are seeing this, then I am gone." He paused, his gaze seeming to meet John's eyes. "I leave you my wealth, my secrets, and my companion. Not as gifts, but as weapons." John's grip tightened on the sphere. Zirith's voice grew heavier. "The one who killed me is powerful beyond measure. They have agents in the Orion Pact, in the trade councils, even in the fleets of your own people. You cannot trust anyone, not even the ones who smile at you." Lyra's posture stiffened slightly, John noticed. But Zirith kept speaking. "Lyra will protect you, but you must also protect her, because she carries a truth she has not told you yet. When you learn it, you will understand why I chose you, and why you must survive." John turned to Lyra. She didn't meet his eyes. "What truth?" he asked. She stayed silent. The hologram continued. "There is one more thing, my friend. They will come for you here soon." As if on cue, a deep alarm began to pulse through the chamber. The pillars flickered, and the asteroid itself seemed to tremble. Lyra's head snapped toward the entrance. "They found us," she said sharply. Zirith's image began to fade. "Remember, John," his voice echoed, "the inheritance is not the end. It is the beginning." Before the projection vanished completely, he added something in the alien tongue. Lyra's eyes widened at the words, but she said nothing. From outside, the sound of metal tearing echoed through the chamber. John's pulse raced. "Who is it? Mercenaries again?" Lyra's voice was tight. "No," she said. "It's worse." And then, from the shadow of the doorway, a tall armored figure stepped into the light. John froze. The face inside the helmet was human and smiling.